Hey everyone, welcome to this week's podcast. There's news from Apple. Looks like they might be partnering. It's a rumor, speculation, partner with Gemini. Anyways, if you like business, AI, and comedy, we are two former Googlers. This is Joe Ternasky. He's a VP of Eng. I am Jordan Thibodeau. I worked in M&A or mergers and acquisitions over at Google. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's go to the news today of Apple in talks with Apple in talks to license Gemini AI
Can
for
you
iPhones.
even call this news?
It's all rumor. It's like a fart.
It's all rumor,
But
innuendo, anonymous sources, puff piece.
Exactly. It's beautiful. That's why we're running with it. Quality reporting. Gemini is Google's suite of generative artificial intelligence tools ranging from chatbots to coding assistants. According to Bloomberg report, Apple's in talks Alphabet-owned Google to let the iPhone maker license and build the Gemini AI engine into the iPhone. Citing people familiar with the matter, Bloomberg said two tech giants are in active negotiations for Gemini to power certain new features due to be released to the iPhone software later this year. Apple's next big iPhone push, iOS 18, is expected during its Worldwide Developers Conference. That's when the company may talk more about its plans for generative artificial intelligence and when it usually talks about its latest iPhone software. Apple CEO Tim Cook said the company is investing significantly in AI during the company's annual shareholder meeting in February. So blah, blah, blah. But let's see here if I can show this feature to everyone. Right click. No. Okay, there's a new thing that launched in Chrome. It's not showing right now, but it says, "Would you like me to write for you?" And basically it opens up a prompt, and you can use Gemini to write stuff for you and fill things out. So just by the default position, if Apple does nothing, that's going to show up probably on Chrome Mobile eventually. So technically, Gemini is being piped in. It's going to be piped in whether they like it or not. So, but anyways, let's just go with the premise, Joe, that let's say it happens. They end up partnering with Gemini. Like, what is that with Google? What does that mean to you? What are your thoughts?
Well, it could be that they're talking about getting the small version of Gemini. I forget what it's called, and putting it directly onto a device. It could be that they're talking about using the larger versions of Gemini, Pro or Ultra, the same way they use Google Search as the default in Safari. But I think that for Apple, that's a kind of not very interesting and maybe temporary move, because their long-term play is privacy, right? They really want to have everything running on the device and not have to send any of your personal information to any third parties.
That's true, because they just did an acquisition with an AI hardware startup. But that company mostly focuses on manufacturing. But one aspect is they can take a neural net, run another net on top of it supposedly, and miniaturize the first net to make it much more efficient, which is good for mobile and other devices. So yes, they want things running. They want the full stack control by Apple and not piping things out to Google.
Yep. And that's where I'd expect them to go. This article also hints that they were talking to OpenAI as well. So that doesn't really tell us much, but I can't even imagine the antitrust people just losing their minds if Apple and Google did another tie-up, or if Apple and OpenAI did a tie-up. I mean, they would just freak out completely.
Yeah, so what Liz Kahn would probably be like, "Oh boy, let's go."
Yeah.
Yeah. And it'd be interesting because they're already embedded together with that Chrome deal. And I don't know if the FTC is looking into how Google Search is like what defaulted on iPhones, and then Google gets like Apple gets billions of dollars. And then now it turns out they're also giving them all their AI related traffic. And I'm sure then the UK, the CMA, and the EU would not like that, because they're like, what about Mistral? What about Le Chat by the French? Baguettes. I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Well, as you pointed out, if the search deal continues, it sort of becomes an AI deal. I mean, people will go into Safari, they'll type some random thing into the navigation tab, and that'll go to Google Search if that's your default. And it will also be handed to Gemini Pro, Ultra, Super Duper, whatever the new version's called. And you'll get back both search results and some AI response. It's easy to imagine transitioning from that to a chat conversation.
Yep, no, that's true. And also, it just makes me wonder, like, it's been, what, a year and a half since ChatGPT got released, and Apple's kind of just like twiddling their thumbs and playing with Vision Pro. I wonder if Steve was here, what Steve would be doing right now. You think heads would be rolling in Siri right now? What do you think, Joe?
I think heads would be rolling, but remember, Steve utterly failed to create an online service to compete with things like uh, Gmail or Google Docs or any of those things. And they did try to build something. It went through 3 or 4 different brand names. And now it's currently called iCloud, and it's still kind of pathetic. But, he fired a bunch of people. He had public dressing down of the team. He was really frustrated that Apple couldn't get it together. And my reaction to that is different companies have different, I guess, core competencies. And this service side stuff has never really been Apple's strength. They're much slower at it. It takes them longer to get it together. And none of their services are really that exciting, frankly.
That's true, because Google was always about like iterative deployment. Like, we're going to put shit out there and then we're going to experiments and we'll get to the answer. And Apple's been very like, we have a manufacturing deadline with 18 months to get something out. It better be effing good before it goes out there.
And
So
it's
much.
always tied to a hardware release, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Apple's making its money most of the time from the hardware release. So the software teams are driven to be ready when the hardware is going to be released. That's a
Mm.
totally different world than the one Sam just described to Lex on the podcast about, he's waiting for the accumulation of features to be significant enough that they can call it GPT-5,
That's right, because in
right?
Apple, the hardware teams call the shots, and software is like, oh yeah, we're going to release something, make sure the software works.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in maybe Google and then OpenAI, it's like, no, we're the software stack, and if it turns out that we don't have enough chips to the hardware side, well, we're just going to start getting the chip business in the Middle East, raise 7 trillion.
Yeah.
So,
And not only does the software release have to work, at the right time, it has to show off the hardware. Otherwise, it's pointless.
mhm. No, that definitely is true. So those are really good points, and I also was just thinking, it's like, if this is the case, let's say they're partnering with Gemini, then the Siri team, like, I definitely should put much more pressure on them. Be like, all right, like, we're basically admitting that you guys don't have your shit together in time, and now we have to go partner with Google. Like, come on, get things
Yeah.
going.
I mean, that's a
Um,
lot of pressure on the Siri team. And I'm sure that the Siri team, just like the Google Home team, is that what it's called? Google Home?
Nest
And
Hub
Amazon
Max,
Alexa,
Service Pro Essentials, too. Yeah,
all these teams have been sort of thrashed, reorganized, turned over now. All of them were sort of caught with their pants down, I guess.
that's
I
true.
also think it's interesting that so many generative AI features across the board could be incorporated into different applications on your phone or on your laptop. I mean, you're seeing a lot of these features coming out with things like, Mid Journey or Stable Diffusion. Like all of those features make sense inside of your basic photo experience on an Apple iPhone.
Exactly. That's why when I saw this tweet from Jason Galkinis, who needs a drug test because he's smoking crack, I don't believe Apple will use Gemini for anything significant. I bet this story is being blown way out of proportion. Why? Yes, why, Jason? Why? Like ChatGPT. Gemini is not ready for prime time, and certainly not ready for Apple's fit of finished standards. Wait. Sorry. ChatGPT is not ready for prime time. What is it now? 100 million plus monthly active users and whatnot. Everyone's integrating it into their products. Like, this guy needs a drug test.
Plus, he just dissed the journalist that wrote the article, and normally he's like a big supporter of journalism.
Yeah, exactly. They still think like the content the journalists produce are actually valuable for these models, and they should get paid for it. Sorry, synthetic data disagrees. Apple has plenty of time to incorporate AI into the phone. It's probably kicking the tires on some simple features that other models could provide. For example, they might want to use the image editing tool. Apple, oh, really, Jason? You mean they've already Android already has that? It's already proven. Apple's already doing AI image detection in photos. They certainly would never give away Siri, which they're rebuilding as we speak. Apple doesn't want to give garbage results, which is at least half of what these models spit out in my experience. Really, Jason, go ahead. That's
Also,
why.
this is the company that just canceled its self-driving car project, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like incorporating AI into a self-driving car is a really similar project to incorporating AI into a phone.
Exactly. Yeah, and also, like Jason's saying, like, it's not ready for prime time yet. He says in the show, I tell every startup, where are you incorporating ChatGPT and generative AI into your products? I'm like, what? Like, I'm sure iPhone users right now, if they had full integration of ChatGPT in your iPhone, would you like be hell yes, turn this thing on? pretty sure like 90% of you like, yes, let's do
How many
this.
iPhone users are using the Chat GPT app on their phone?
Egg. That's a sweep the leg response right there, Joe. That's why you're VP of Eng. That's the main thing. It's like, yeah, everyone's using it already. So he really is. He needs one of these real quick.